The Odyssey might become one of the most divisive movies in 2026 before it even releases. And honestly, well, I completely understand both sides of the argument right now. Because the moment the trailer dropped, the internet instantly split into two groups. One side thinks Christopher Nolan is about to deliver another cinematic masterpiece like his other movies, but the other side thinks this could become Nolan's most controversial movie ever. And after watching the trailer myself, I honestly think both reactions make sense. Because visually, this movie looks absolutely massive, but creatively, it's also taking some very risky choices. Now, first of all, let's talk about the scale of this thing. The cast alone already feels insane. Matt Damon as Odysseus, Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Tom Holland as Telemachus, Zendaya as Athena, Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy, Charlize Theron as Calypso, plus Robert Pattinson and several other huge names. Honestly, this feels less like a normal movie cast and more like Hollywood assembling an all-star mythological Avengers team. And visually, Nolan clearly isn't holding back either. Full IMAX cameras, real locations, practical effects, almost no heavy CGI, a nearly 3-hour runtime. This is obviously being designed as a giant cinematic event. And honestly, that's exactly why so many people are excited. Because whether you love him or hate him, Christopher Nolan still feels like one of the few directors capable of making movies feel important at the theater. Not just content, an actual experience. That's why films like Interstellar, Inception, and Oppenheimer became massive cultural events. People trust Nolan to make ambitious cinema. And honestly, adapting The Odyssey actually fits his style perfectly on paper. A story about identity, time, war trauma, the struggle to return home, a man psychologically lost during a massive journey. That sounds exactly like the type of themes Nolan loves exploring, which is why I think the movie could genuinely be incredible emotionally if he nails the execution. But this is where the controversy starts. Because a lot of people online already think Nolan is drifting too far away from the original mythology aesthetically. The biggest criticism right now? Historical accuracy. The armor designs, the costumes, the ships, the overall look. A lot of history fans immediately pointed out that several visuals feel way more modernized than authentic Mycenaean Greece. Some people even compared parts of the trailer to generic fantasy gladiator movies instead of ancient Greek epics. And honestly, I kinda understand that criticism, because when you adapt something as legendary as The Odyssey, audiences expect a certain mythological authenticity visually, especially when Nolan markets the film as grounded and practical. Now, personally, I don't think Nolan is trying to make a historical documentary here. I think he's intentionally creating a more timeless and modern interpretation of the myth. The problem is, not everyone wants that. And then we get to the other huge controversy, the dialogue. Bro, the internet absolutely lost it over lines like dad and daddy in the trailer. A lot of people immediately started saying, why does this sound like a modern American family drama? And honestly, that's probably the biggest risk Nolan is taking creatively, because mythological epics live or die based on atmosphere. If audiences stop believing in the world emotionally, the immersion breaks instantly. And for some viewers, hearing modern speech patterns inside an ancient Greek epic completely destroys the tone. Now, the casting controversies are obviously another massive discussion online too, especially surrounding Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy. Some fans praised Nolan for diverse casting choices. Others accused Hollywood of forcing modern politics into ancient mythology again. And like most internet controversies now, the conversation immediately became extremely toxic online. Even people outside movie fandom started jumping into the debate. And honestly, I think this entire situation reveals something bigger happening with blockbuster cinema right now. Audiences today are way more sensitive to adaptation choices than before, especially when adapting iconic source material. People don't just want spectacle anymore, they want authenticity too. And Nolan is walking a very dangerous line between artistic reinterpretation and alienating audiences who wanted a more faithful mythological adaptation. Now, here's the thing though, Christopher Nolan has always been divisive creatively. People forget that even Tenet completely split audiences. Some called it genius, others called it confusing nonsense. But Nolan usually succeeds because his ambition alone becomes fascinating to watch. And honestly, that's why I'm still very interested in the Odyssey despite the controversies. Because even if it fails, it'll probably fail in a big, ambitious way, not a safe studio-produced way. And I actually respect that. Now, my personal theory, I think Nolan is intentionally making the Odyssey feel emotionally contemporary because he wants modern audiences to connect to Odysseus psychologically rather than historically. This probably isn't meant to feel like a distant ancient legend. It's supposed to feel immediate, human, personal, almost timeless. The question is whether audiences will accept that approach or reject it completely. And honestly, I think reviews are going to be extremely divided. I can already see critics praising the visuals, performances, and ambition, while audiences argue non-stop about the dialogue, casting, and tone online. But box office-wise, I still think this movie is going to make huge money, because Nolan's name alone has become an event brand now. People will show up just to see what he cooked this time. At the end of the day, The Odyssey feels like one of those movies where the conversation around it becomes just as important as the movie itself. And honestly, that's probably exactly what Nolan wants. Anyway, what do you guys think? Are you on the pro side or the contra side for The Odyssey? Are the modern dialogue choices bothering you? Or do you trust Christopher Nolan to deliver another masterpiece anyway? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more. And see you guys in the next one.